Okay, folks, thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's the holiday weekend, and we'll do our best to be as efficient as we can. Welcome to the planning board meeting, regularly scheduled for July 3rd, 2025, 7:30 p.m. First up, we have business items. Those are items that we've reviewed in the past, and we're going to make a decision on what the consultant drafted from those decisions, and we're going to be discussing those and moving on to continuing applications. So first up is request for a 90-day extension of the resolution of approval for subdivision application number SD 23-04 for the development of vacant parcels located at Bradhurst Avenue and Brighton Avenue in Hawthorne for the construction of an approximate 3,000 square foot business office with storage barn. Additional improvements include driveway, parking area, stormwater mitigation facilities, landscaping, and screened areas. SBL 112.9-1-2 and 3. Owner is Brighton Avenue Properties LLC. Any questions or comments from board members on this extension? Okay, with the record show there's no additional comments, what is the pleasure of the board for this particular resolution?
I recommend approval of the 90-day extension.
Yeah, they're waiting on their health department. They just recently filed.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion from Eileen.
Second.
Second from JD. Walter?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And an aye from me. Next up, request a 6-month extension of the resolution of approval for site plan application number PSP-001 for the proposed demolition of existing structure, construction of a mixed-use building, ground floor retail, first and second floor apartments, 4 units in total, at 146 Broadway, Hawthorne, HH zone owned by 146 Broadway, LLC. And I know this one probably has a little bit of history on this as well.
It does, and it's also with the health department.
Okay, so this one is with the health department for those who have not been on here, our consultant, and they're finalizing that process. So with that being said, any questions or comments from board members? Let the record show there's no questions or comments from board members. What is the prevailing thought or pleasure of the board?
Recommend approval of the 6-month extension.
Motion from Eileen.
Second.
Second from JD. Walter?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And aye from me. Finally, acceptance. We have two minutes. We're going to do them both separately. Acceptance of minutes drafted from the 6/5/2025 planning board meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Motion.
6/5/25 planning board.
Motion from JD.
Second.
Second from Walter. Walter?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And aye from me. Next up is acceptance of minutes drafted from the 6/16 planning board meeting.
Make that motion to accept the minutes from the 6/16/2025.
Motion from JD.
Second.
Second from Eileen. Walter?
Aye.
Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And aye from me. Okay, next up, continuing applications. Proposed 145 Bennett Place legalize and cut and fill grading and the construction of a concrete retaining wall in excess of 6 feet at rear portion of property. Application steep slope SS 25-03. Location 145 Bennett Place, Hawthorne, New York. Section block lot numbers 111.12-1-11. Zone R10. Owner Michael Stallone. Applicant and engineers Movement and Tia Grid Engineering. Come on up. Let's grab the mic, state all that. Come right on up here. Grab the mic, state your name for the record. And
good evening.
Go through where we are.
So right now, we regretfully say that the engineer got caught on a flight because of the weather. He was unable to attend. We would like to continue if possible. If not, he needed an adjournment.
Yeah, we can certainly continue.
Okay.
Are you the homeowner?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go. And I know this has been a little bit of a process for you. I get it.
A little bit.
And we have, don't worry, we have people here who also know the story behind what's going on, and I've been updated as well. So just give me a summary of where we are with this today. I know you had a wall and you were going to rebuild it. I think there were some questions about the engineering comments. What was the summary of the engineering comments, just for the record?
As far as we know, everything got approved, and they were ready to push forward. We were waiting for acceptance of the permits to move forward.
Okay, let me just refer to our consultant.
So that's correct. The engineering department has signed off on the technical aspects of it. There may be another permit that's required based on the amount of impervious surface. Dave has indicated that can be a condition of approval.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments from board members?
Does he need a variance for the wall height?
Yes, he does. The wall height needs a variance.
Okay. Also, it looks like the backyard beyond the property line belongs to New York State, that land. Did they receive a referral on this or anything? Was there any?
So they wouldn't need a referral, but they were noticed as a neighbor.
They were, okay. It looks like what you want is basically what your neighbors on either side have.
Correct. I just want a backyard. I have a 3-year-old. I'm trying to get a playground in the backyard, and it was very slopey.
Okay, any additional comments or questions?
And this is legalization of the walls and then change to what you, that
I just-
corner.
I increased the wall height to make it flat, and I'm just trying to put a playground.
Yeah, he had a wall, just to kind of repeat back, and then you built on top of the wall.
Correct.
And then the question became the stability of the existing wall that was already there
Right.
before. So
And
the
we-
engineer went out there.
We have an engineering report from their engineer certifying that. Dave has reviewed that.
The
So
wall did demonstrate that it passed engineering review. And the additional wall top, I'm assuming also was. So from an engineering perspective, I think they are good. So any other questions or comments from board members?
So we approve this and then we go to zoning for the variance?
We approve this and go, yeah, you would have to get the variance
it's,
as well.
what they're looking for now is a referral to the zoning board.
For referral to zoning. So we're not approving this right now, we're giving a referral to go to zoning.
So it's a height variance, so conceivably you could grant conditional approval. Typically, you wouldn't do that. You'd wait for the zoning board first, so it's up to you.
Yeah, I think we should stay consistent, you know.
Was there a public hearing? Have we had a public hearing? I can't remember.
Well, they'll have one at zoning first, and then they'll come back here, finish the rest of the site plan up, and do public hearing here.
So basically what he's gonna do is he's gonna look for a referral to go to the zoning board. The zoning board will do their thing. And then once they do their thing, they come back to us. And then we go through the process, do public notice, tell the neighbors and everything else. They come out, get comments, and then the board makes a decision based on everything we've heard and all the information we've read. And based on the fact that the engineering comments are out there and all that other kind of good stuff. So, and any other questions or comments from the board? So what we have before us is to make a decision, do we want to send this with a referral to the zoning board? Okay, so,
I make a motion that we send this to this application to the zoning board of appeals for a variance for wall height.
motion from Eileen,
Second.
second from Walter. Walter? Aye. Eileen?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
And aye from me.
Thank you, sir.
That wasn't so hard, was it?
No.
Good. Enjoy your holiday.
Thank you, too.
Thank you. Okay, next up. Proposed New York City DEP KEC contract for shoreline stabilization of the Kensico Reservoir to protect an additional 1,600 linear feet from storm-related turbidity near the reservoir intake, upper effluent chamber, with the removal of accumulated sediments in support of the existing water supply use, grading and tree removal within the 50-foot wetland buffer. Application site plan number PSP 25-01, wetland number W25-01, steep slopes number SS 25-01, location Westlake Drive, Valhalla. Section block by number is 117.11-3-1, zone R40, owner and applicant New York City DEP. Come on up, DEP. And I'm sure you have more than the name of DEP, so if you can just share your name and all that for the record.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Board. My name is Arnie Farrath. I'm a portfolio manager for the FDDEP.
Welcome,
Hi, and I'm Deborah Kiesler. I'm the accountable manager.
welcome, welcome. Okay, so we're going to go through what you're doing over there, and we'll hear the story and go from there.
Okay, great. I know we presented back in February, and I know we had some comments, and so we're just gonna, I mean, we have the presentation, we can run through, if you want, you know, if you, stuff you've seen already, I know we've been here a few times.
To me, and this is important to review what
Okay.
Here today.
Okay, so we just jump to those slides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's here. Slide 25, it shows the differences.
It takes a moment or two.
Fair enough. So what we're about to present is going to be two changes that have come about since we were here last and since we responded to comments.
Yeah, and that's perfect, because I think we've heard the first part of the story. We don't need to.
Fair enough. No need to belabor it. There's fireworks.
There are. If you can get to them.
Okay. If not, I have it on paper, so.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, so it's, should be just before that, there we go. So the two new pieces,
Excuse me, would you mind taking the mic?
no, that's fine, hold it, not a problem. I'll stand next to it, let's. Yeah, oh, just up?
There you go.
Okay, so the two new pieces are a culvert along Westlake Drive. If you see the circles in the lower right-hand corner, those represent the driveway to the upper effluent chamber along the shoreline at Kensico. And the little red box represents an increase in the limits of disturbance. We are building a new culvert underneath the road there. Prior to this, we were planning on using the existing culvert, and we were doing a lot of workarounds to get through it, and felt that it was much better to put a fresh culvert in. So we were doing that. That will carry water from our stormwater basin through the walls that we're putting in for stormwater and down to the reservoir. And the second piece is based on comments that have come back in about the height of the soil stockpile out at the corner of Westlake and Columbus. We have tried to smooth the slope of that and spread it a little bit differently. So where we were going to originally store the soil, the topsoil from the disturbance for shoreline, the top of that pile, we are now spreading it and moving it further back. So if you were to look at the parallel line across the top of that slide, that represents Columbus Avenue with a diagonal for Westlake. So it's really moving back closer to Shaft 18, which is along the lower piece of that picture. And that topsoil will be returned to the site when we restore the area around shoreline, when we're done.
Okay, so what is, I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow that. Return to the site. So you think you're knocking down that hill a little bit?
So over at the shore,
Okay.
we're going to be pulling up the topsoil.
Gotcha.
It's really good soil. We want to keep it. It's native. So we're going to store that on site on the Kensico campus. Some of the other soil beneath that we are taking off campus. And that will allow us to wear down some of the other soil that has been collected as they've done other work on the site. And we'll be keeping native soils on the project. So once the shoreline work is done, we'll be taking soil off the stockpile from other portions of the Kensico campus, and then we will come to this green area and take that topsoil back and put that in place along the shoreline.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Yep, those are our two new pieces.
So yeah, I think the big concern when you do have a public hearing is going to be the health.
Okay.
And so, refresh my memory, if you don't mind. And I know that's not really germane to this particular application, but it's part of the entire site.
Okay,
So we need to be prepared for those answers.
fair enough.
What are we doing with, I quite there in your face, if you will. Are we doing something different there to do better landscaping, by the way?
You want to jump in?
Yeah. So we're, in multi-phase project, the next phase, this is what we call contract 4. Contract 3 is coming in. We haven't brought it to you, but that's the final phase. And yes, we will have, we do have a landscaping plan that does involve some more, landscaping features. We, ultimately, we're also part of that third, the last contract, the final phase, will be taking more soil out of that area as well. So, the overall purpose was to minimize truck traffic in the community, so that's why we're storing it there. But we've heard the concerns, and, with Shoreline, we are working on reducing some of the, visuals on that, and we will continue to do that in the final phase with the landscaping plan.
Yeah, and I know we've reviewed it extensively, but I sometimes need a memory refresh.
Yes.
They speak for
Understood.
Maybe also, I'm hoping they do, because I'm not the only one with that memory failure.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to reinforce the fact that DEP is committed to lowering the hill as they move through this process. It's something that you need to bear in mind as we see the other contracts and hold their feet to the fire to make sure that hill is in fact coming down substantially.
Right, because when we do come back to a public hearing with this particular application, even though it's not germane to the public.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's going to come up, so we need to be well prepared for that conversation.
Understood.
I'm wondering though how you can, what the landscaping plan would be. If you're removing soil, whatever you plant is going to be taken out, or how are you managing?
Well, the final landscaping plan will be done in the final contract, because as you're saying, yes, it's a bit dynamic now, because once again, we're trying to reuse soil, minimize truck traffic within the community, but the final plan after, we will then do we have final plantings.
In a nutshell, how long for the pilot term?
How long, in a nutshell?
Yeah.
That work is probably somewhere between around 2034. So it's a while. That's why we're going to try to, reduce some of it now, under this job. And, hopefully we can reduce more in the beginning, but the final plantings we don't want to do until we're done, because we don't want to, disturb it.
Okay.
Our earlier submissions had two kind of piles like this that peaked, and we're working to do this.
Was there an opportunity for screening the pile? I don't know what kind of landscaping or how much you're moving around the site that, the planting that could be longer term, that's just going to screen the pile a little. I'm anticipating questions.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think as far as, what do you mean by screening? Sorry, I'm just like.
Plant something you don't see the big pile as much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't,
But
I mean,
the plants might get in the way.
yeah, that's the concern about doing that. We're also, in general, from security point of view, we don't want to put trees right next to the fence. That tends to, it's not good security-wise, so that's something we're also.
I ask all because I think someone else will ask.
Yes, no, thank you. We should be prepared. Those are the kind of things, yep.
Yeah, Eileen, I think our takeaway from DEP is that that's a active pile of dirt for many, many years, but they've agreed to do their best. So that's why I say every time they appear before you, ask them if are they still doing their best and what could be done in addition.
Yeah, our lasers off a little bit, because we're hearing about this particular, the culvert and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's important to have that laser shift a little bit, because we're gonna be sitting here taking those questions, and we also want to be prepared for those conversations.
I also wanted to touch, Mr. Chairman, and I see Steve came in,
Yeah.
but I'll reinforce what I know he's going to tell you was part of the conversation we had with this is that they're taking down 850 trees or something like that, and replacing a little bit more than that, most of which is being planted on, I think it's called Little Island in North Castle, not in the town of Mount Pleasant, to do their restoration. And as we've been saying all along, it ought to be on our side of the lake, not on the reservoir, not necessarily on their side of the reservoir. There's problems with that logistically on doing it, but that's another issue where I think we want to press them on. Dave Smith memo today also reinforced that position as well, and I'm sure Steve's going to reinforce the position.
Yeah, I'm enthusiastic to hear the CAC tonight, but we're almost there. Any other questions or comments from board members on this?
What are the next steps here? What are we here for tonight?
Moving to public hearing.
And from a town staff perspective, I believe
We're okay to do that. Remember, this is a continuation of the shoreline stabilization we've approved and they built many years ago, so they're just continuing it up the, and we had no problems with that project originally. You know, this is a project that is a continuation. That the issue is they're modifying the site and modifying the site in an area that's a little bit sensitive. They need to go to DEC for wetland permits for this. So it's a complicated permitting project.
Yeah, I mean, I am enthusiastic to hear from CSC again, and I think this is one of those things where we need to do it. But I think it can also be a showcase of how we can take what was somewhat destructive and made it somewhat environmentally aware or sensitive. So I want to shift the conversation in a moment. So we'll see, and we'll have him come speak to us a bit. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think the board has any other questions or comments.
I just have a question. Have they seen Dave Spitz?
Yep.
Mr. Smith, like the board to ensure that you create new wetlands, make every effort to create new wetlands within the Pensacola Reservoir?
We're aware of the condition and we will continue to work through that effort.
Can you speak into the mic?
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, we are aware of that condition and we will continue to work toward that effort.
And that relates to the tree issue I was talking about earlier.
Why don't you love to have a mic at home? With your family.
I do costume theater so that I can avoid the mic.
That, Dave Spitz recommended the DB shall make every effort. Can that be made stronger?
Yeah, I think Dave was
Not every
giving them a
effort
break
they-
on that.
they
I think,
shall.
I think you want to press them on that and be a little more specific. But remember, the wetland issue is subject to Army Corps and DEC too, so you need to hear from them in addition to what DEP wants to do.
It's my understanding that we have a substantial team of professionals that is working to make sure that we find mitigation within the Kensico Basin, within Mount Pleasant, if we can do that.
Yeah, and that was the key. Their position is we're doing it within the drainage basin, where our position is it ought to be on our side of the drainage basin.
I'm just concerned about make every effort. I'd rather just see.
You know, I think I think that message is to you, so you should make them not make any effort, is do it.
You know what I'm saying? Shall.
I hear what you're saying. and I'm telling you that we hear the condition.
If we get to the point of having a public hearing and we haven't solidified a plan, and this is in resolution, how do we, good faith, have that conversation with the public? Well, if we hear shall and we may and we could,
Well, a lot of this was addressed in the FEIS in the beginning, and we're continuing to work with you on
I
it.
understand it, but I don't think we've really cemented into the conversation a more solid plan. Like, trust but verify conversation. You know, how do we present to the public? The public saw this engineer comment and then they came here to the meeting. We don't really have even a specific plan. I think we need to have a little bit more of an understanding of specifics versus shall and may, could.
Well, Mr. Chin, to be fair, they have a plan that shows wetland mitigation, restoration, tree reforestation. Our internal review of that is, again, maybe okay, but it should be benefiting us more than it is benefiting the town of Northcastle across the way. So that's kind of what we've asked them to review. Their response has been, okay, we'll think about that, but we also have to hear what DEC and the Army Corps has to say,
Yeah.
because they're the regulatory agencies here.
Come on up.
Hello, my name is Phil Simmons, Bureau of Environmental Planning Analysis with DEP. And there are many aspects, right? So if you're asking for a final plan now, that'll be very difficult because one of the issues that Army Corps and DEC have, and it's before us, is that we need to move forward with our wetland mitigation prior to or during the actual regulated activity. So, so that's where we will move forward with our our Big Peninsula site to the north, the north.
That's what it is, not Little Island, Big Peninsula,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah. Big Peninsula site, we'll move forward with the Big Peninsula site. We do understand the request, and we will look into appropriate sites, but it's very difficult. There aren't very many appropriate sites, so.
But I think you kind of understand the predicament that this board is in, right? Because
Oh, yes,
right,
yes,
because
we understand that there's a pinch point, yes.
between now and the public hearing, we put more thought into it. I'm not asking for every I to be crossed, every I to be dotted, every T to be crossed, but at least a little bit more of a high-level conversation
Okay.
of big ideas. I'm not looking to nail down to the granular ones of it, because I don't think you can, because you have always the very interesting conversations that you need to have, and I well understand that.
Mhm.
But I do think, in good faith to the community, based off what the town engineer said, I think having a rough idea where that is going to be and what the rough idea is, that we're not going to hold you to that necessarily because it's a rough idea,
Okay.
but at least we should have that conversation. So,
Okay, we understand. We certainly can have the rough idea conversation. We understand where you're coming from, so yes, we'll work toward a common goal.
And I just offer, Jim, that one of the benefits is that they're gonna be with us for many years. So if there's an evolution of a plan, we don't lose them. You know, we have them on a short leash, and we can continually amend or update plans as the project evolves over 10 more years.
Right, and that's a good point, and I believe that we as DEP can, commit to have the plan evolve, yes.
And it doesn't escape me that the acronym DEP is the Department of Environmental Protection. So I know that you guys are by your very nature of your name is environmentally sensitive, but our job up here is also to make sure that Mount Pleasant is represented in the environmental conversation as well as the greater community. So that's our purpose here.
So is it fair to ask that a location is presented by the time that we have the public hearing by you guys? We understand that our Army Corps of Engineers and other jurisdictions are gonna have to oversee that, but if you guys can give us a location that you think might be suitable, at least that could start the conversation. And I think when we have the public here, then we've made progress that we could show.
Okay, it is difficult because we have looked in the areas, and because of the need to put the wetland mitigation within the watershed, and if you're aware that the watershed it's a thin fringe in the Mount Pleasant side, so there isn't a lot of available space to with the right soils, etc., to create a wetland, a mitigated wetland. We can certainly, look more. If we have it'll be difficult to have a firm location in Mount Pleasant in the near future.
Did we get our wetland consultant involved in this
So
conversation?
we are in the process of interviewing a new wetland consultant.
Yeah.
So not on board yet, but will be in a couple weeks.
If there's somebody here in a couple of weeks, I think that would be project number one.
100%. Yep.
Okay. But we do understand where the board is coming from, and we will move forward.
So in your estimation, what's the likelihood that we're gonna find a location?
To find a location that meets DEC and Army Corps, rules and regs within the watershed on the Mount Pleasant side of the border is slim. It's possible that we might be able to find a small portion, but it's difficult.
So we're kind of going with service.
Yeah, we need some technical support with respect to this, but what I would say, just to defend DEP for a moment, is they have to create restoration, they have to plant 872 trees. If they plant them on our side and they die, we haven't achieved anything. So from the overall environmental perspective, finding the right location is the right thing to do. They found one, it's just not in our town. Think hard again to at least try to get some of that on our side of the reservoir. And I think they've agreed to do that.
Right. And we certainly want to work in good faith towards a common goal. So.
Okay, I think you know some of the sentiment coming in. I think you know what you think about. Any other questions? questions, comments from board members, and then we'll talk to the DEC, the CAC, the acronyms tonight. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're gonna have our CAC guy come up and give us a little bit of a conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Together. Good to see you. Stephen Cavey, Conservation Advisory Council Chair. I don't have much specifics to add other than to reinforce all the comments that were already stated here. But I would like to suggest the possibility that we have a member of the CAC who's actually a wetland soil scientist. So in the interim, before the wetlands consultant gets on board, I think maybe I can have a conversation with Phil and we can look at some maps and maybe even arrange a site visit. So just so the CAC can understand where the locations don't exist, that we want to confirm that that's in fact accurate and correct. I imagine that it is correct, but it would be useful for us for doing our job to make sure that that is accurate. You know, I'll probably have some other conversations with Phil with regard to the tree clearing and just get some clarity on the documents that we have on where the trees are being cut, where the planned restoration is, and where we're not getting restoration, where the cuts are being done. So we understand those in full. So we've got a little bit of work to do as well before the public hearing. But, you know, we do have a concern. We share all the concerns that were expressed here. There's a tremendous amount of trees being cleared. There's not a lot of restoration on our side of the ledger, so to speak. And I gather, you know, that there's some conditions that make that a challenge. But we're going to look to see with the DEP where there may be some ways to enhance that. The only other thing, and some of this is already, I saw in some of the comments that we had in response to our prior comments, with regard to this, first of all, we're looking at a really long timeline, okay? I should live so long that the time comes when we're reviewing this stuff, that there are things that we've challenged that I'm still around to be commenting on them. I mean, I hope so, but, you know, so there's steps along the way, as Pat said, that we'll have several bites to keep on top of this, and the CAC will keep that, and we'll keep in communication with the DEP so that we can try and accomplish close to what we're seeking. But I know that we've had this conversation with DEP several times about mitigation on site, and it apparently is a challenge. We actually wanted to do mitigation off site altogether, but apparently that's completely counter to DEP policy. But the other thing, just first of all, I'd like to get a copy. I'll call engineering, get a copy of Dave's memo so I understand and we're all in sync on what's going on here. And we all just want to be clear about the process of the tree clearing and to be sure that this timeline and the methods are going to protect nesting birds and protect species that rely on seasonal use of the trees so that when the clear cutting gets done, that the effect on the wildlife is minimized and will mitigate whatever effect there is post tree loss. So these are conditions that we want to see and make sure that they're spelled out. I saw them in response to comments, but when we do establish whatever the final resolutions are, we want to be sure that wildlife is protected to the maximum possible. There's a tremendous amount of impact going on here. As you said, Mr. Chairman, you know, DEP has been a good partner. We realize that clean water is a very essential part of human condition, and the natural conditions on the site have been a benefit to the town. But we've got a major effect going on here, and we want to work through it step by step to make sure that we're doing the best possible thing for the natural resources that we have here in this town. And so, you know, I'll speak to Phil and see if we can arrange a site visit. Is that something we think we can do? Good, because we've got, as I said, a member who is quite good. As many years as I've been doing this, it's all by the seat of my pants. This guy's actually got the science background for it, so that would really benefit us. So as I said, you know, we're still moving this in steps. We'll stay with everybody and work together to try and accomplish the goal. The end result may not be exactly what we are seeking, but we'll certainly keep pressing for it and see what we can come up with.
I think the goal, and look back and say that, oh, it was a very destructive project, and it is, by its very nature, it's a destructive project, but the benefit of that destruction at the end was it was done in an environmentally sensitive manner, and the environment had some benefit to the entire project at the end of the day.
Right.
By the time 2034, whatever.
Exactly. And again, I want to reiterate that, you know, as has been said, the CAC and the town and the planning board will keep an eye on this year by year, month by month, hearing by hearing, to make sure that whatever we've talked about is accomplished as, we'll set goals and make sure that we're on top of that. But again, I don't want to suggest that I'm looking at this with rose-colored glasses, and you know that we take a pretty hard look at everything that comes along, but I have a fair amount of confidence that DEP is going to do the best efforts, because if they don't, it's going to damage the ecosystem that they're relying on for the water that they're trying to protect.
Yeah.
And that's the rule of thumb that we've used with all DEP projects. We're really partners on this thing. There are certain elements here that we're trying to do to protect some of our own natural resources within the town, and that's the goal we're seeking. But we have a general outline, as you said, and an end result that we're really going to be seeking the same outcome. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just the DEP has been good partners to all these different phases of the project, so thank you for that. Okay, so we are here tonight, and we're here to figure out whether or not we are ready for a public hearing or not. So from a town staff perspective, hold on one moment. Got the i's crossing the t's over here. Great. So from a town staff perspective, we don't have anything outstanding.
No, we could move to public hearing on this if you choose to do it.
Okay, just to confirm, okay. So with that being said, you heard the board, and I think you guys, to be honest, I can tell you don't think we're crazy, and you think there's some validity and some, you took it seriously, so thank you for that. So with that being said, what is the prevailing sentiment from the board on scheduling a public hearing for New York City DEP Basin Contract for stabilization of Kensington Reservoir?
I don't see any reason not to. I would make a motion to move forward with the public hearing.
Motion from JD,
Second.
second from Marlene. Walter? Aye. Colleen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And aye for me. We'll see you. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up. Proposed 70 Leroy Road, development of a single-family dwelling, a new driveway, well, and an on-site wastewater septic system. Application steep slope SS 25-01, location of vacant land on Leroy Road and Bristol Lane, Chappaqua. Section plot line number is 99.6-2-20.2. Zone R40. Owner Sean Shepard. Applicant is Jacob Shang Architecture. The architect is Mike Jacobs. Welcome tonight.
Hi, my name is Sven Armster, and I'm going to be presenting for Mike Jacobs. I couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to have to be patient with me just to get up to speed on this.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
You get to see how the sausage is being made.
Okay. So I believe there's, should I take the mic?
Yes, please. And state your name. We did that already.
Yeah, I did that. Okay, so I think I should go through this whole presentation. I'm not sure exactly how much back and forth there has been. I know there's been several letters back and forth. If there's specific things that you want me to address, I can do that, or I
Why don't we have a high-level summary from staff, why don't we go through what the project is? Because we also, though it's not a public hearing, we may have people watching us tonight. So just high level what the project is, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish,
Okay.
and why.
Okay, so it's a new single-family house at 70 Leroy Road in Chappaqua. It's the original approval, it's a new single-family house on a parcel created from a subdivision in 2009. The original approval for the development was for a 5-bedroom house. The current proposal is for a 4-bedroom home. It is a 1-story house over a basement. We also have updated the house footprint, driveway, septic system, and stormwater proposal from the last meeting, I guess, that you guys had. And so I'm just going to go through these slides. The first slides. So this is the property here, 70 Leroy Road. That's the 2009 subdivision. And as you can tell, there's a fair amount of grade on the site, and I think that was the steep slope was one of the biggest concerns for this site.
So are we, and I forget, so I'm going to ask the question now, because this has been a prevailing sentiment, are we building walls for landscaping, pools, tennis courts, anything?
No.
Or this just, because Pat, my thought is, I think we need to state that if we move in the direction where we may or may not go, that we are aware that the site has difficult.
Yeah, this is the continuing issue we have with steep slope applications. Folks buy properties that are steeply sloped and then want to change them into unsteeply sloping properties. So they have to prove that there's a basis to do that and it's not impacting adjacent properties. That's
So if there is a plan at
Yes.
some point to do that in the near future.
For a future pool and for future work?
Any kind of wall, any kind of cutting into the slope or
Yeah,
backfilling.
the last time that this application was here, you had asked that they show a location for a pool in the future that would
Correct,
be not
yeah.
so disruptive.
I'm actually the builder, and I've had conversations with the owners, and they have no desire for a pool or a tennis courts. And I think the main reason they went with Jacobs Chang, and I've worked with Mike before, is that his houses, he's trying to create a house that sits within the landscape that is as least intrusive as possible, that works with the landscape. And I think, and talking with the owners, they were like, well, we have no desire for a future pool or jacuzzi or.
And I think if we do move in a direction, if we go one direction toward building something there eventually, and I don't know if we'll get there or not, I think the resolution needs to point out the fact that the site is constrained, and it needs to put language in there saying that that was the prevailing sentiment of the board.
And leave the reason why. So that doesn't prevent a future owner to come back to you, but if there's a record in your approval saying the reason we gave you this is we didn't think you would ever do this.
There's no way you could put a pool on this site.
So
I mean, your septic system takes up such a large area.
And just, may not be pool, maybe just walls, it could be, somebody wants to do anything they want to do. I just want to make sure that we're thinking, I'm not really concerned about your prospective homeowner.
Yeah.
It's the homeowner, 3 owners down.
Yeah.
So.
That's understandable.
So I want to make sure that we have something documented that the board was aware of the constraints of the lot.
And if you do remember, Mr. Chairman, that home that the architect presented was set into the hill. It was it was sensitive to the site. The issue was what else could happen on the property.
Yeah. I actually went out a couple weeks ago and strung it out and measured it and just just looked at the site and just tried to feel it out. And I think the siting of it is almost perfect.
Yeah, no, I
Where it
understand.
sits and where it sits in terms of the septic system. And also too, looking at the well, like the location of the well, I know that was one concern for the steep slope. And I brought my excavator out there to look at it, and he said, I don't think I have to do that much for those guys to get their trucks in. Obviously, afterwards, we have to put up silt fencing and to protect that area for anything that's been disturbed. But it was actually less steep than I thought it was.
Okay.
After looking at the plans, I was like, oh, this is actually not bad at all. You know, so there might be a little bit of road cutting, a little bit of fill in there, just so his trucks doesn't, you know, destroy that. And then obviously we'll protect that area, pull that out, and put new plantings or grass or whatever
I
to
think
fit
we
into
understand
it.
what we're thinking, but we
Yeah.
understand what your
Yeah.
thought is as well. So I think we're good to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and I also
One
looked.
second though, before we get to, if we do get to that point, Pat, is it beyond our scope to be able to, in the resolution, limit it for future use? That
So what you would
it's not
do is,
on the site?
so you can ask him to impose a deed restriction on the property. The applicant can voluntarily agree to do that. You couldn't compel him to do that. But what you would do in the resolution is provide all the reasons why you would never allow that to occur in the future. So they'd have to have some pretty strong reasons if the third property owner comes back and asks for
Yeah.
such a thing. So I can just conclude, Mr. Chairman, that we asked for a bunch of information last time around. They have provided that information. There's a couple of things that relate to this. So they're trying to get to public hearing on this. They've submitted the stormwater management plans. Dave has to sign off on that, but it's okay going to public hearing. There's an access easement that needs clarification. They provided the deed, but that has to be gone through to make sure it's clear. But nothing with respect to the physical.
And there was a guardrail too.
And there's nothing with respect to the physical improvements that they haven't satisfied. The tree density factor, the extent of cut and fill, the amount of material that gets removed from the site. So Dave has said it, and I'll say that they can go to public hearing, but there's issues to still be worked out.
Because I know there was one comment, I think GDU came up with a question or comment about the driveway and the turn at the bottom of the driveway.
I mentioned that the first, when I went out there with my excavator, I was like, oh, that drops off right there.
Yeah.
That's going to need a retaining wall or need something. So, and I believe they've addressed that also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have like your, the issues that came to that I'm recalling is that when you want to nose out of the driveway when you come out, so you're not backing up. So I noticed that you provided a hammerhead so you can
Yeah.
maneuver to get out.
Yeah.
Another thing that came up though was all of your construction vehicles.
Yeah.
Are they parking, and is there a suitable area for them to park on
Yeah,
site?
yeah. I mean, I think there's enough along the driveway where people can park parallel
Yeah, I
coming
can
into
give you
the
a
site.
drawing that shows where they would park.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually, I think it's a great, I mean, it's a very nice site to work. I mean, I can imagine when we start working and stuff, it'll be easy site to stage and work on. And
Have you provided that, logistics plan?
Yes.
Staging plan?
Yes, he
We have-
has
we
that.
have drawings.
And then I think there was also a question, the parking, I
I
can't
think there's
remember.
a guest parking into the conversation at one point too. Because I said Leroy Road's a very narrow road. I think we brought that up as well.
Yeah.
So,
That road, if you've been up there recently, I mean, we're going to begin construction, but it looks like a construction road right now. I mean, I think they're waiting, the property across the way, that road is definitely going to need to be repaved, and I almost want to talk to the owner and ask him, like, can we do that once the
was
project
issue I was
is.
raising. It's a private road, so they're sharing maintenance responsibilities. So
Yeah.
does that get folded into this, which has different maintenance responsibilities? Is everybody sharing? Is it
Yeah.
his responsibility? So that's what has to be worked out.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, anything else from our board members? I don't think the CAC has any comments on this. No. But I just wanted to double check. Okay. Okay, so the question now before us is, do we schedule a public hearing or not? And then I'll leave to the board to make that decision.
I'll I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Motion from JD,
Second.
second from Eileen. Walter? Aye. Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And I from me. Okay, we're ready to go.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. For us next is a brand new application, 15 Chestnut Place, Pleasantville, New York. Installation of retaining walls to make rear yard more useful for recreation and installation of a greenhouse. Application steep slope number SS 25-08, location 15 Chestnut Street, section block lot number 106.13-3-80, zone R10, owner applicant John Marzek, engineer Hildebrand Engineering PLLC. Welcome.
Right. So, good evening. Brian Hildenbrand, joined with John Marzek, the owner of the property. As stated, we have a few things going on, so I'll walk you through the proposal. Right now, the driveway slopes down towards the back of the property. What the intent is to, one, expand the driveway a little bit to allow additional parking and maneuvering around the back of the house, dropping the grade down to create a walkout out of the rear, and then continuing over here in this corner of the property, creating a wall and creating a terraced area for a greenhouse structure, just any relatively flat lawn area in the back for the family. Additionally, the blue is the rainwater harvesting system that they want to install. That's these tanks. Right now they have a well, so that the intent is to collect as much water as they can for irrigation for the property for times of drought to offset the use of the well. Unfortunately, we don't get stormwater credit, so we also have a stormwater mitigation system. So when the cisterns are full, any overflow gets infiltrated as a typical stormwater system. We did receive Mr. Cleary's memo this afternoon, so I know there's some big picture issues we want to talk about. So we're open to the questions.
Okay, any questions or comments from board members?
I think you may have answered one of my thoughts, responded. The retaining wall along the rear property line looked like it was maybe 60 feet too long because the top of the wall met the natural grade. But if you're going to be excavating out so that you can get a walkout basement, I think that answers the question because I couldn't see why you were doing that.
Yeah, there's the wall here, and then there'll be a small wall to the house to let the grades come down with steps. So you'd be stepping down.
Yeah, because you're raising one end and lowering the
Right.
other, it seems. Okay.
Yes.
Also, the loss of those 4 trees is disappointing because your neighbor is going to see, have new exposure to your house.
Can I address that?
Yeah, please.
We don't have like the specific plan on this plan for that, but we do intend to put, those are some kind of pine trees right now, and 2 of them are sort of the wrong kind. They're like two of them are very healthy, and the other 2 were like planted at a different time, and they're not doing well. We do intend to put some sort of vegetative screening along the entire top of that wall over there. My wife is like a big native plant buff or whatever, so like we don't have a specific plan at this time to what to do that, but we have the same desire as the neighbor to we both of us want privacy from each other, and we think it will increase that privacy, not decrease that privacy when it's done.
And that, I don't understand the purpose of the wall coming in from the right. What's the elevation change? You're at 190? What's the elevation? I just don't understand that wall.
This is to help the grades so you can come out off of the driveway, and then we created another terraced area up here.
Okay.
So this is only a 2-foot wall just to help with the grades. It's not like a substantial wall.
So with the cuts and fills, is it a balanced site?
No, there'll be more fill. We'll be importing.
Fill coming in?
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful if you did indicate on the plan what type of plantings that you're going to put, so we had a landscape plan.
Okay. Who's going to see the walls, like behind, I haven't seen the site yet, so behind the house and the side of the house, what's there? The homes?
Yeah, I can address that. We only really have like 2.5 neighbors. There's a neighbor, like a house here. That's one neighbor on this side of the property, and then there's a house here. That's the other neighbor that like we can sort of see each other's houses from our house. There is a house here, but there's a lot of, like half the properties is just trees and stuff from here, so you basically can't even see each other's house from here. This is all Graham Hills Park. So what was your initial question?
So what are neighbors going to see? Are they going to see giant walls? Or what are they seeing?
Nothing's really going to change for these guys. These guys are going to see like at its peak, it'll be 6 feet here, but it gets shorter and shorter as it goes this way, basically. Like it's already, I think, like 4 feet maybe by here, and goes to 0 by here. But we're hoping to do, assuming it's not cost prohibitive, like a natural stone wall, like with grouted joints and stuff, but like field stone wall, yes. So I think like what's there now, it's certainly going to be an improvement both in terms of privacy and like what my neighbor's looking at right now. Because what's there now is like when they built this house was like rebuilt, I guess, in 2002 or so. They made it a bigger house, but on the same spot. It looks like they just sort of bulldozed, a bunch of earth kind of this way, and like where you see like the contour lines are close together here, it's like a very steep, it looks like they just pushed a bunch of earth over there and then like stopped wherever it was and put down that like screening stuff to keep the soil from eroding, which is now starting to kind of become visible and fall out and stuff. So like it's very difficult to maintain, like I can't even like mow or like you have to like weed whack it basically, and it's like hard to even like walk up and down like this thing here. So this wall here is going to be like a nice natural field stone wall that they're looking at, which allows me to like actually maintain the landscaping on top of it basically.
Okay. So I know there's a number of questions that came from the consultant among the greenhouse.
So a couple things, Mr. Chairman. So theoretically and philosophically, walling property lines is something we try to avoid. We like to have properties that work with the neighboring properties. So the notion of creating large walls creates a concern. So one of the issues is, could they be lowered, staggered, modified to lessen the severity? We're talking about 6-foot tall walls that face neighboring properties. So what you can do is give us a good sense of what's going on around your property. So if those neighbors, that the homes are oriented in different directions, if they're not rear yards looking at this, that would be helpful to understand those relationships. So Brian can give us that map that would tell us what's going on. But effectively, they're seeing 6-foot high walls.
Yeah, I want to have your questions answered, me personally, before we.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And one other point with respect to this, the reason they're before you is for the steep slope permit.
Yep.
I understand they're trying to grade that portion of the property, but if I don't know what the primary intentions are, but there's potential other locations for the greenhouse that would avoid a steep slope permit entirely.
Yeah.
So there are potentially other options for the site to think about.
Yeah, I'll let the applicant go to your comments and respond to them accordingly.
And just again, the way it's constructed now, there would be a variance that's required for the wall too, so there's some issues with respect to this. It's not a very simple application. There's some things that they need to address before this moves forward.
Yeah, we see a number of applications, and you heard me reference it before with the previous application, where people buy constrained lots and they want to make them less constrained, which is understandable, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in such a way that we're not creating additional problems either for neighbors or future homeowners who buy your home. So I think we need to answer the questions that are put forth by our consultant and address any of the comments that have come through this board, which was pretty much echoing your comments. But I think having those questions answered would be good. Also, the planting specifically, as Arlene mentioned, would be helpful as well. And I am enthusiastic that your wife is an advocate of native plants. I know our CAC chairman would be happy for that as well. But let's make sure we look at all those things and come back to us when we have those questions answered. Yeah, come on up.
The only question, I'm new to this application, and I'm glad I had a chance to see it, but could you point to me where the fill is?
Just, I don't know if they know who you are.
I'm sorry, I thought, previously introduced the Chair of the Conservation Advisory Council, Stephen Cavey. Thank you. Where is the fill going in exactly? JD had asked if it was a balanced site, and apparently it's not.
Yeah.
Basically from here to the corner.
Okay, right. Well, the only thing we would add is, I'm not sure what the conditions are with regard to code for fill, but we just want to be sure that there's measures to test the fill and make sure that it's clean and the source is verified, and that there's nothing going in there that is going to be a problem for the homeowner, the downslope homeowners, and the next homeowner. So that's a condition that I think we want to be clear about when there's fill of that nature. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any final questions or comments from the board?
Pat, what's the maximum allowable height for a retaining wall?
6 in the rear yard, 4 in the side and front. So that side wall is the side yard, and it may encroach into the front yard as well. So that's where they need the variance. Unless they could stagger the wall, lower it, modify the grades.
We have considered that. We bought the house in fall of 2019, and this has been like a project we've been mulling over for the last 6 years. We've considered all, stepping and this sorts of things or whatever. It's we thought this was the compromised. Like we're trying to to minimize the look on the changing the character of the space and make it look nice for not just us but our neighbors. Yeah.
But the planning board hasn't gone through 6 years of this, so you've got to walk
Yeah.
them through your thought process and how you got to it, and support it, justify it.
Are you saying doing that right now or?
No. I think you have to do that formally by responding to the comment memos
Okay,
that
yeah.
you're hearing tonight.
Also, what are the dimensions of the greenhouse? I'm just saying, looks like a big building.
It's 10 by 20 is shown.
And what is this, the zoning sense? I know you had that in your comments about the greenhouse and the zoning around greenhouse.
Yeah, it's an accessory building, it has to meet the accessory building setback requirements, that's why options should be considered as well, and if they're staggering the wall, that may affect the setback, so it's something to think about.
Yeah. I would imagine somebody likes plants in your house.
Yeah, we all do. Yes.
All right.
How tall is the greenhouse?
The greenhouse we don't have formal plans for yet, but it would be within the the limits of that accessory building thing. It's not just a greenhouse also, like if you see it's got that line there, like this would be like a sort of shed. The back part would be the shed with potentially a small playhouse on top of it. I have 3 school-age children. I think the limits are 15 feet.
It is.
We would enumerate that in our resolution, the maximum.
We're not seeking a variance on that or anything like that. It would be within whatever well within whatever the limits are.
We would enumerate that in any kind of resolution if we did get to that point. Any other final questions? As far as, if you get out of here in time, you may actually get the fireworks outside of the window. Going on, that's at the end tonight. All right, come back and we'll be here and we'll walk you through the steps.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.